We're continuing with May 2021, Paper 1, Timezone 2, question number 6. Two schools are represented by points A and B on the graph below. A road represented by the line R with the equation -x plus y equals 4 passes near the schools. An architect is asked to determine the location of a new bus stop on the road such that it is the same distance from the two schools. Find the equation of the perpendicular bisector of AB. Give your equation in the form y equals mx plus c. That is a 5-point question, so that's a lot of points. This is definitely one of those that you want to answer. In order for you to find the perpendicular bisector of AB, you're going to have to find a few things. Number one, you're going to have to find the midpoint. The perpendicular bisector, that word bisect means to cut in half. So that means that we have to locate the midpoint of points A and B. This is quite easy because you have the midpoint formula in the formula packet. So in the formula packet, under topic 3, geometry and trigonometry, you're going to see that towards the bottom, you find the midpoint formula, x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. So this right now is the easiest thing we're going to do so that we can start getting some points. We're going to do 2 plus 14 over 2, comma, 20 plus 24 over 2. This is 16 over 2, which is 8. 20 plus 24 is 44 divided by 2 is 22. The next thing we're going to do is figure out slope. Because my new line is going to be perpendicular to my other line AB, I have to find the slope of AB first. Slope formula is also in the formula packet, but this formula is not in topic 3 the way the midpoint formula is. This formula is in topic 2 under functions. It's always a good idea for you to know exactly where your formulas are located so the day of the exam you're not scrambling to try to figure out where you can find them. So the slope formula is under topic 2 and it's called the gradient formula. Remember, for IB, gradient is slope. So to find slope, we're going to do y2 minus y1, that is 24 minus 20, divided by x2 minus x1, which is 14 minus 2. 24 minus 20 is 4, 14 minus 2 is 12, and I can simplify 4 over 12 to 1/3. If you don't know how to do that, remember your calculator will do that for you. I'm going to show you in the calculator because it's possible that you really are not that strong in math. So if you do 4 divided by 12 in the calculator, it gives it to you as a decimal. If I go to math, frac, then you're going to see that it's going to give it to you as 1/3. So far, the midpoint, 8,22, is going to give you 1 mark or 1 point on this problem. The gradient of AB, the slope of AB, is going to give you 1 point. Right now, by writing down the perpendicular slope as the negative reciprocal, which means you flip it, change the sign, -3, you've already gotten 3 out of the 5 points. The next thing we're going to do to figure out the perpendicular bisector is actually put this together so that we can write down the equation. The equation has to pass through the point 8,22, and it has to have a slope of -3. You can go straight into y equals mx plus c, or you can put this in point slope form first and then rearrange the problem. I'm going to go ahead and use point slope form. Y minus y1, which is 22, is equal to my slope -3 times x minus x1. And the reason why I do that is because that is already going to give you 1 additional point for method. Now I'm going to rewrite it and I'm going to give them the answer in y equals mx plus c form because that's what they're asking for. If they had not asked specifically for y equals mx plus c, which is gradient intercept form, you would have been fine giving them the answer exactly the way we've written it right now in point slope form. So here I'm going to distribute y minus 22 is equal to -3x plus 24. Add 22 to both sides. Y equals -3x plus 46. And that is my final answer. So again, you get 1 point for having the midpoint, 1 point for the slope of AB, 1 point for the perpendicular slope, 1 point for attempting to write the equation of the line, and the final point for putting it in the correct format. Part B, determine the coordinates of the point on R where the bus stop should be located. So what we have found is the actual midpoint. Here is the line AB, and we found the perpendicular line to AB. That's the equation that we found, y equals negative 3x plus 46. They gave us this equation. It is negative x plus y equals 4. And it says an architect is asked to determine the location of a new bus stop on the road such that it is the same distance from the two schools. So this means that we're going to have to find the point of intersection between the perpendicular bisector and the road. If I get y by itself, I get y is equal to positive x plus 4. All I did was add x to the other side. And now I have a system of equations which I can solve. X plus 4 is equal to negative 3x plus 46. And just for writing this equal to each other, you're going to get 1 point for method, and now you have to solve. Because in this particular problem, they already gave you a graph, it is so easy to solve this equation with the graphing calculator. I'm going to go to y equals in my calculator. I'm going to enter y equals x plus 4. Then I'm going to enter y equals negative 3x plus 46. I'm going to go to window, and I'm going to adjust the window to match exactly what I see on the graph already. If you notice, the x min is 0, the x max is 24, the y min is 0, and the y max is 28. And both are going by a scale of 4. So I'm going to make my x min 0, my x max 24, my x scale 4, my y min 0, my y max 28, my y scale 4, and I'm going to press graph. So there I can see my two equations. I'm going to go to second trace. Option 5 is intersect. The calculator is going to ask me which is my first curve. They call everything a curve, okay? So even though they're lines, they're calling them curves, and that's okay. So I'm going to press enter for the first one. The calculator automatically jumps to the second equation, and then it's going to ask you to guess. Their guess is always as good as yours, so press enter, and that means the point of intersection is 10.5, 14.5. Because it says to determine the coordinates of the point on R, you do have to make sure you write this as an ordered pair. So the solution is going to be the point 10.5, 14.5. Some students swear by numeric solver. You can use numeric solver as well. It's going to give you the x coordinate, but you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to substitute to get the y coordinate. The fact that we have a graph here makes our life so much easier in terms of a window. That is exactly why I chose to solve it that way. Can you solve this by hand? Absolutely. You can solve for x by using your general algebra skills, and then again, you have to go back and solve for y. Question number 7, a function is defined by f of x equals 2 minus 12 over x plus 5. Find the range of f. One of the things that you need to realize is that this problem is going to have an asymptote. When you have a denominator that can be set equal to 0, then you know that you are going to have an asymptote wherever the denominator is equal to 0. So in this case, x equals negative 5 is my vertical asymptote. So I'm going to use my calculator to help me graph this equation. When I go to put this as a fraction, my calculator allows me to put this in fraction form so I don't make a mistake. In the calculator, you have different zoom features. I'm going to go ahead and put zoom standard because that's just going to give me negative 10 to positive 10, negative 10 to positive 10. And right now it says the function is defined for negative 7 to 7. So I figure that fits within negative 10 to 10. Now the question becomes to find the range of f. If you go to second graph, which is your table, you can see what happens when x is positive 7. When x is positive 7, you are at 1. And again, why am I looking at positive 7? Because they have given you the domain. They are telling you the possible values of x. So I'm looking at all the y values between negative 7 and positive 7. Here you can see how at -5, the calculator gives you an error message. That is because of that vertical asymptote that exists at -5. So basically, if you notice, when x is -7, we're at 8. Then it gets higher to 14. Then we have the vertical asymptote. Then we have -10, all the way until we get to positive 7, which is 1. In terms of the graph, you can tell by looking what's happening with the y values. The range tells me right now that all my values for y are going to be less than or equal to 1. Or they're going to be greater than or equal to 8. So for the range, I'm going to say that f of x, because that is y and that's how they wrote it, is less than or equal to 1, and f of x is greater than or equal to 8. And like I was saying, this is a domain that they give you. So that is why I only looked on my calculator for what is happening when x is 7 or -7 and everything in between. For part B, this notation means the inverse. When you see it like this, it means that you have to figure out the inverse of 0. This is very different from finding f of 0. When it says to find f of 0, you're going to substitute x is equal to 0. But this is different. In this case, they tell you to figure out the x value so that the answer is equal to 0. So what you're going to do is actually take the equation and set it equal to 0 so that you can solve it. So we get 0 equals 2 minus 12 over x plus 5. That means 2 is equal to 12 over x plus 5. Multiply both sides by x plus 5. Distribute. Take away 10. So 2x is equal to 2, which means x is equal to 1. This means the inverse of 0 is 1. This is something that I could also very easily find from the calculator. If you are going to use the calculator to give you the answer, you're going to have to sketch a graph so that it backs up your response. Basically, in the calculator, you go to your table. In the calculator, you want to find out for what value of x is your y value equal to 0. And right here, we can very clearly see that it's when x is equal to 1. How would you show this as your work? You would have to do a rough sketch of your actual problem. And then from there, you want to show that the inverse is equal to 1. Question number 8. At Springfield University, the weights in kilograms of 10 chinchilla rabbits and 10 sable rabbits were recorded. The aim was to find out whether chinchilla rabbits are generally heavier than sable rabbits. The results obtained are summarized in the following table. A t-test is to be performed at the 5% significance level. Write down the null and alternative hypothesis. It is best to write the null and alternative hypothesis in a t-test using symbols. In this case, our null hypothesis is going to be that the population mean for chinchilla rabbits is equal to the population mean for sable rabbits. So we can say the mean, so mu, that's the symbol for the population mean, of the chinchilla rabbits is the same as the mean of the sable rabbits. Our alternative hypothesis, depending on how it reads in the problem, is that chinchilla rabbits are generally heavier than sable rabbits. So what we're trying to test is if the population mean for chinchilla rabbits is greater than the population mean for sable rabbits. You get 1 point for each. If you were to write this in words, you have to say population mean. So it says, accept an equivalent statement in words. It must include mean and reference to population mean for all chinchilla rabbits in order for you to get an actual point. They will not accept saying the means are equal. That is why it is so much better and so much easier to write this down with the symbols. In order for us to find the p-value for this test so that we can answer part B, we're going to have to use the calculator to run the test. You're going to go to Stat, Edit. Under List 1, we're going to put the weight of the chinchilla rabbits from the problem, which is 4.9, press Enter, 4.2, press Enter, 4.1, 4.4, 4.5 and 4.4. So at this point, I can tell the calculator is ready to receive the 11th value. And if I count, there are 10 numbers. So I know that I put them all in. Then I go to list 2 and I'm going to put in the second set of data, which is the sable rabbits. When you're done entering all the values, take those 10 seconds to double check that all of your numbers have been inputted correctly. You need to remember that you are going to trust whatever the calculator spits out as the answer. And so you need to take the time to just double check that everything has been put into the calculator correctly. Now I can go to Stat, Tests. I'm going to go to option number 4, to sample t-test. Then we are going to use data because we actually have data in list 1 and list 2. And it's asking me, where is list 1? Where is list 2? Don't worry about frequency. It's going to be 1. Right now, the alternative hypothesis is that the first mean is greater than the second mean. For the IB exam, the answer is always yes for pooled. Pooled means equal variances. And every single question on your IB exam for a t-test, it will be pooled. So make sure you say yes and now calculate. So from here, we're going to write down our p-value. Remember to write down what the calculator tells you, 0.0408065, and then you can round to 3 significant figures. As a reminder, this 0 in the front, 0.0, those are not significant. So 0.0408 is going to be your answer. Write down the conclusion of the test. Give a reason for your answer. The reason is that our p-value of 0.0408 is less than our significance level of 0.05, and because the p-value is smaller than the significance level, that means that we have sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. And that's it. That's all you need to state. You could also say that because the p-value of 0.0408 is less than your significance level of 0.05, there is sufficient evidence to suggest chinchilla rabbits are heavier than sable rabbits. Every once in a while, they're going to give you a hypothesis testing problem, whether it's chi-square, t-test, goodness of fit, and they're going to ask you to give your conclusion in context. In that case, it is imperative that you talk about the variables they're using in the problem. Right now, since all they said was to write down the conclusion to the test, you can get away with just saying that we have sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. Had they mentioned something about in context, you need to make sure that you address the chinchilla rabbits and the sable rabbits. Question number 9, I can already tell, is some type of area of a sector and possibly arc length type of problem. A garden includes a small lawn. The lawn is enclosed by an arc AB of a circle with center O and radius 6 meters, such that angle AOB is 135 degrees. The straight border of the lawn is defined by chord AB. The lawn is shown as the shaded region in the following diagram. A footpath is to be laid around the curved side of the lawn. Find the length of the footpath. So the lawn is the shaded region. That means that right here, this is the lawn. The footpath is going to be around the curved side of the lawn, which means it's going to go right here. That is a typical arc length problem where you want to find the length of that arc. The formulas for arc length and area of a sector are both in the formula packet. They are part of topic 3, geometry and trigonometry. It's amazing how, like I said before, the version of this test has a lot of geometry and trig in it. So the length of an arc and area of a sector, both formulas are in the formula packet. The arc length is theta over 360 times 2 pi r. So here L equals 135 degrees divided by 360 times 2 pi times the radius, which is 6. All of this goes straight into your calculator. You can put this as a fraction if you would like. 135 over 360 times 2. Remember to use pi, the actual full value of pi, times 6. And your answer is 14.13716694, which you can write down as 14.1371 ... which is approximately 14.1 meters. And that's your answer for part A. Where do you get your 3 points? You get 1 point for using arc length formula. You get another point for correctly substituting the 135 and the 6 into the arc length formula. And then the last point is for your final answer. So these are awesome points to get. Now you want to find the area of the lawn. Notice how this one is worth 4 marks. It's more marks than the previous problem. Why? You're going to have to find the area of the entire arc. Remember, an arc is like a slice of pizza. Once you find the entire thing, you're going to have to find the area of the triangle, and you're going to have to subtract those two so that you are left with just the area of the lawn. So let's go ahead and start by finding the area of the entire sector. So for part B, the area of the sector, again, the formula is in the formula packet, is going to be 135 degrees out of 360 times pi radius, which is 6 squared. You don't get points for just copying down formulas. If you work better by writing down the formulas, by all means, go ahead and write them down and then substitute into them. However, you don't have to waste your time copying down formulas. You just have to show how you're using the formula. Here again, you're going to get a point for substituting into the area of a sector formula. This is going to go straight into your calculator and you're going to get your answer 42.4115 ... But now I have to use the area of a triangle formula to figure out the area of that triangle. The way you use area of a triangle formula, the one that's in your formula packet, is that you need side angle side. Remember, the radius is 6, therefore that other side is also 6, and that's going to make it a lot easier to use the formula. Just like before, right above the length of an arc and area of a sector formula, you have area of a triangle. It is 1/2 AB sine of angle C. And the area of a triangle works side angle side. So here it's 1/2 6 times 6 times the sine of 135 degrees. Once again, put this into your calculator. Make sure that you are in degree mode, which if you've been doing the problems with us from the very beginning, we have already changed our calculator into degree mode. So this is 12.7279 ... And then finally, to find the area of the lawn, we're going to have to subtract these two. So you want to show how you are going to take 42.4115 minus 12.7279. And this is going to equal 29.6836 approximately, which is about 29.7. What's the unit? Meters. Square meters, because this is area. And that's your final answer. Number 10. Tommaso and Pietro have each been given 1,500 euros to save for college. Pietro invests his money in an account that pays a nominal annual interest rate of 2.75% compounded half yearly. Calculate the amount Pietro will have in his account after 5 years. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. This is financial math. You're going to have to go into the calculator and you're going to have to use the financial math app. Financial math questions are so important in the exam because most of the time you will get 1 free point for just attempting to use the finance app. So right now, if you find apps, which is located diagonally from the green button, you're going to see finance, press enter for TVM solver, and now you have the entries that you're going to put. N is the number of years, and if you remember in this case, it was for 5 years. Pietro invests his money in an account that pays an annual interest rate of 2.75%, compounded half yearly. Calculate the amount Pietro will have in his account after 5 years. So N is 5. The interest rate is 2.75. Present value. Because he is investing his money, the way this app works, it works cash flow, which means that he is going to be out the 1,500 euros because that money is out of him, like wherever he had it, into this separate account. So because he's out that money, it's going to be put in as a negative. That is just the way that app works. PMT is periodic payments, which we don't have any payments right now. FV is future value. That's what we're looking for. You can't just clear it and leave nothing there. The calculator will not move. So you have to just leave whatever number you want, 0, 10, 1, it doesn't matter. P per Y is going to stay at 1 because, again, this is not a payments problem. And then C per Y, because it is compounded half yearly, that means it is compounded twice a year. Then you go back to future value and you press alpha, the green button, enter, and you're going to get your answer right away. And double check that your answers were input correctly, because I noticed that I put 2.72 instead of 2.75. So I went ahead and I redid it, and now I have the correct response. What counts as your work for financial math questions? Your entries from the calculator. You're going to write down N equals 5. Your interest rate is 2.75. Your present value is negative 1,500. PMT, remember, was 0. P per Y is 1. And C per Y is 2. Writing that is going to give you automatically 1 point for the attempt to use the finance app, 1 point for correct entries, and then finally you're going to get 1 point for the correct answer. Remember, it says to round to 2 decimal places. Be very careful with financial math questions. They typically tell you to round to the nearest euro, the nearest dollar, or to 2 decimal places, since a lot of currency, a lot of money is rounded to cents, which is 2 decimal places. So here our final answer is 1719.49 euros. Tommaso wants to invest his money in an account such that his investment will increase to 1.5 times the initial amount in 5 years. Assume the account pays a nominal annual interest rate of R% compounded quarterly. These are the types of problems that the finance app is going to make this so much easier. Remember, we're trying to figure out the interest rate. N is still 5 years. The interest rate is what we don't know, we're looking for. Your present value is 1,500. Remember, you're still out that money. PMT is 0. Future value is going to be 1.5 times what I started with, 1,500. I can put this into my calculator, the 1.5 times 1,500, it'll multiply it for me. Another thing to keep in mind with the way the app works is the present value and future value have to be opposite signs. So because I made present value negative, future value has to be positive. P per Y is still 1 because this is not a payments question. And now C per Y has changed because it is now compounded quarterly. So P per Y is 4. This goes straight into our calculator. and all you have to do is type over the information. So N is 5. Remember, we're looking for the interest rate. Don't touch it right now. Leave it alone. The present value is negative 1,500. PMT is 0. Future value is 1.5 times the 1,500. And then the compounded is quarterly. So go back to your interest rate, press alpha, enter. And just like that, you were able to figure out that the interest rate that has to be charged is going to be about 8.19%. So my interest rate is 8.19%. And in these type of questions, it's so awesome because a lot of times they give you a point just for using the financial app. And that is huge because you could literally not know what you're putting into the app, but you're putting numbers in. Now, you don't get any points if all you do is write N equals I equals PV, but you don't actually put any numbers in. So do your best to write down the correct numbers. Number 11, a newspaper vendor in Singapore is trying to predict how many copies of the Straits Times they will sell. The vendor forms a model to predict the number of copies sold each weekday. According to this model, they expect the same number of copies will be sold each day. To test the model, they record the number of copies sold each weekday during a particular week. The data is shown in the table. A goodness of fit test, so here's another statistics type question, at the 5% significance level is used to determine whether the vendor's model is suitable. The critical value is 9.49. On the exam, if they want you to use the critical value, they will give it to you. So they've already gone ahead and given us the hypotheses. It says find an estimate for how many copies the vendor expects to sell each day. Remember that the vendor forms a model to predict the number of copies sold. And according to the model, they expect the same number of copies to be sold each day. What we don't know right now is the total of how many copies were sold. So we want to figure out the sum of how much was sold, which is 74 plus 97 plus 91 plus 86 plus 112. So that means that they sold a total of 460 copies during the entire week. And because he expects to sell the same amount each day, 460 divided by 5, he expects to sell 92 copies per day. This is a 1-point question, which means you're going to get it right or you're going to get it wrong. And honestly, you can show the work just like I have, but it's not going to give you any points for a method. Write down the degrees of freedom for this test. That is a very easy question. The degrees of freedom is always the number of categories minus 1 in a chi-square goodness of fit test. Because we have 5 categories, there are 5 days of the week. 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. So the degrees of freedom is equal to 4. Write down the conclusion to the test, give a reason for your answer. We have to now go ahead and run the test by putting this into our calculator. If we go to stat edit, remember we already had this from our 2 sample t-tests. I'm going to clear my list and I'm going to enter my observed frequencies first. So that means on Monday they sold 74 copies, on Tuesday they sold 97, on Wednesday 91, 86, and 112. Then we expected to sell 92 every single day. So I'm going to put the amount that I'm expecting to sell every single day. That is as much work as I am doing. The rest the calculator does for us. You're going to go to stat, test. This time you go up because it's shorter. And you're going to find the chi-square goodness of fit test. Press enter. The observed values are in list 1. The expected values are in list 2. The degrees of freedom, remember we said, is 4 and calculate. So from here, we're able to get not only our chi-square calculated value of about 8.54, we also have our p-value of about 0.07358. Because they have given you the critical value, you can compare that to the calculated value, or you can just do p-value versus significance level. Either way, you're going to reach the same conclusion. I didn't leave much space for me to write my answer, so I'm going to write it here. On the exam, you're going to have plenty of space to write your answer. So I'm going to say that because the chi-square calculated value of 8.54 is less than the chi-square critical value of 9.49, there is insufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. You could also say that this means the data satisfies the model. That would also be accepted on the exam. And instead of comparing the chi-square calculated to the chi-square critical, you could have written that your p-value of 0.0736 is greater than your significance level of 0.05. Do not give both answers. Make sure that you know which one is your strength and just use that, because IB will take your first response. So if you make a mistake with the first one, that's it. You're not going to get points, even if your second response or the second way of writing it is correct. So choose which is the best way for you. I think if you don't have a lot of space in your brain for all of these different things you have to memorize before the exam, that it's best to learn p-value versus significance level, because you can use this for any test, AT test, a chi-square test of independence, or the goodness of fit test. Whereas chi-square calc versus critical is only for a goodness of fit test or a chi-square test of independence if they give you the critical value. For question number 12, we have a quadratic. Consider the function f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The graph of y equals f of x is shown in the diagram. The vertex of the graph has coordinates 0.5, negative 12.5, and the graph intersects the x-axis at the 2 points. Find the value of p. This is quite easy. Here, I know that the equation for my axis of symmetry has to be x equals 1/2 or x equals 0.5, which means that -2 plus p divided by 2 has to equal 1/2. So that means -2 plus p equals 1. So p, if I add 2 to both sides, is equal to 3. So that tells me that p is 3. So this is the point, 3, 0. Now they want us to find the value of a, b, and c. Because I know what my 2 points on my x-axis are, I can go backwards to find the equation. My 2 roots, these are called roots, your x-intercepts, are -2 and +3, which I just figured out. So I'm going to go backwards. To go backwards, you go x minus the first root times x minus the second root, and you set that equal to 0 and you multiply. So basically what we're going to do is x minus -2 times x minus 3 equals 0. This means x plus 2 times x minus 3 equals 0. Distribute x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6 equals 0, which means x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. Before you think that's your final answer, you have to check to see how your values compare. So I kind of have a hunch that my y-intercept is going to be at -12. I do want to test that theory out. I will multiply everything by 2. So I get 2x squared minus 2x minus 12 is equal to 0. And one of the ways that I can check to see if I am correct is that I can find the equation of the axis of symmetry, x equals -b over 2a. And if I use what I think is my answer, then I can see that x equals -2 over 2 times 2, which is 2 over 4, which is 1/2. So I am correct because I got exactly the same axis of symmetry. So that tells me the value of A is 2, the value of B is -2, the value of C is -12. And the last part says to write down the equation of the axis of symmetry, which I actually could have answered from the very beginning without even answering any other questions. Last but not least, number 13 is a calculus question. I can tell because of the notation, this means the derivative. A company produces and sells electric cars. The company's profit in thousands of dollars changes based on the number of cars X they produce per month. The rate of change of their profit, and remember, derivative is rate of change, from producing X electric vehicles is modeled by. The company makes a profit of $260,000 when they produce 15 electric cars. Find an expression for P in terms of X. So in order for us to figure out the original equation, once they give us the derivative, is that we want to find the antiderivative. That means we want to find the integral of negative 1.6x plus 48 dx. Just for recognizing that you have to take the integral, you will get 1 point for method, which is huge because maybe you don't know how to find this integral, but you're going to get 1 point for method. The way you find the antiderivative is by doing the anti-power rule. You're going to add 1 to the exponent. Right now the exponent for x is 1, so you're going to add 1 and divide by the new power, which is 2. So we're going to get negative 0.8x squared. Then the antiderivative for 48 for a constant is going to be 48x. And remember, you always have to put plus c because it stands for a constant. Now, in the problem, they gave us enough information for us to be able to figure out this constant. In the problem, it says that when they produce 15 electric cars, the profit is $260,000. And P is in thousands of dollars, so I don't have to worry about those extra zeros. I'm just going to substitute when X equals 15, P is 260. I am now going to substitute 260 equals negative 0.8, 15 squared, plus 48 times 15 plus c. This goes straight into your calculator. 260 is equal to 540 plus c. Take away 540. Negative 280 is equal to c. I have just found the entire equation, which is negative 0.8x squared plus 48x minus 280. For part B, the company regularly increases the number of cars it produces. Describe how their profit changes if they increase production to over 30 cars per month and up to 50 cars per month. Justify your answer. The problem says that when they produce 15 electric cars, the profit is $260,000. Now that we have the profit equation, we can figure out what happens when they produce 30 cars and when they produce 50 cars. So if we substitute 30, we get negative 0.8 times 30 squared plus 48 times 30 minus 280. And now we're going to be able to figure out how much profit they make. When I substituted 30 into the equation, I got 440. When I substituted 50 into the equation, I got 120. This tells me that the profit is decreasing. Another way that you could have been able to tell this answer is by explaining that because the profit function is decreasing, the gradient is negative, the rate of change is negative, profit will decrease. And then this is your final answer. Hope you found this video helpful. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more help with math so that you can say, yes, I can do math with confidence. Until next time, thanks for watching.